a country that had never once qualified for a World Cup, where the summer sun hits 50 degrees. And it had just beaten the United States, Australia, Japan and South Korea to host the biggest sporting event on Earth. The men who made it happen were arrested, banned, disgraced. And what really happened, FIFA tried to bury. This is the story of how the World Cup was sold. A sealed white envelope sat on a table in Zurich, December 2nd, 2010. Inside it was a single word that would rewrite football forever. Sepp Blatter picked it up. He tore it open. He looked out at the room. And he said one word: Qatar. The room stood and applauded. Cameras flashed. Champagne was poured. But behind the smiles, the deal had already been done. The votes had already been bought. To understand how big this was, you have to understand what was actually on that table. The World Cup is the most watched event humanity has ever created. Billions of viewers, tens of billions of dollars, a whole month where the entire planet looks in one direction. And the power to decide who hosts it didn't belong to fans. It didn't belong to players. It belonged to 22 men. 22 members of FIFA's executive committee. One vote each. Win enough of them and you win the world. This is the kind of story this channel exists for. So if football's dark history pulls you in, subscribe and stick around. Qatar wanted it. And Qatar had something none of its rivals could match. Almost unlimited money. The bids were studied and graded. And FIFA's own technical inspectors flagged Qatar as high risk. The heat, they warned, was a genuine danger to the health of players and supporters. On paper, Qatar should have finished last. Instead, it won. 14 of the 22 votes. The favourites were knocked out one by one until only the desert was left standing. The result made no sense, but what investigators found underneath it made far too much. To find out whether any of this was clean, you have to follow one man. His name was Mohammed bin Hammam, a Qatari billionaire, a FIFA vice president, one of the most powerful men in the entire sport. Officially, Qatar's bid team swore he had nothing to do with their campaign. They said he never lobbied a single vote on their behalf. The paper trail told a completely different story. Years after the vote, a newspaper got hold of the documents. Millions of them. Emails, contracts, bank transfers. A digital trail that bin Hammam thought no one would ever see. And the trail showed money. A lot of it. More than $5 million moving out of 10 secret slush funds controlled by his private company. Payments handed to the presidents of 30 African football associations, the very men who shaped how that continent would vote. Some of those payments were as large as $200,000 each. More cash flowed to powerful officials in the Caribbean and the Pacific, the men holding the votes Qatar needed. So here is the evidence. Lay it out. 10 hidden accounts. Over $5 million, dozens of payments dropped into the accounts of the exact officials who controlled the vote, and every dollar of it moving in the months right before the ballot. Then the votes came in, for Qatar. Coincidence? Or the price of a World Cup? You make the call. Tell me what you think in the comments. The football world made its call. Mohammed bin Hammam was banned from the sport for life. And it gets worse, because bin Hammam wasn't the only one. When American investigators tore into FIFA, they found bribery running through the whole executive committee like rot through wood. Prosecutors said the president of South American football took bribes to vote for Qatar. So did the former head of Brazilian football. One vote at a time, the tournament was being paid for. This wasn't one bad man. This was a system, and the system had a price list. May 2015. Before dawn, plainclothes police walked into the five-star Bauer Lac Hotel in Zurich. Inside were some of the most senior officials in world football, in town for the FIFA Congress. One by one, they were led out, some hidden behind white bedsheets so the cameras couldn't catch their faces. 7 arrests in a single morning. The charges: racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering. Prosecutors said FIFA officials had taken more than $150 million in bribes over 24 years. That same day, Swiss police raided FIFA's own headquarters, hunting for evidence tied directly to how the 2018 and 2022 World Cups had been handed out. The organisation that ran the world's game was now a crime scene. But here's the part most people never hear. Because before the arrests, FIFA had a chance to clean its own house, and it chose to bury the truth instead. FIFA hired a respected American prosecutor, Michael Garcia, to investigate the bidding. He spent over a year on it. He wrote a report more than 400 pages long. Then FIFA released a short summary that said, essentially, nothing serious had been found. Russia and Qatar were waved through. Garcia watched his own investigation get rewritten in public. He called the summary erroneous and misleading. And then he did something almost no one inside FIFA ever did. He resigned in protest. The full report stayed locked away for years. And it gets worse still, because the rot reached the very top. Within days of the dawn raids, Sepp Blatter, the man who had read out Qatar's name, the most powerful figure in football for 17 years, announced he was stepping down. Swiss prosecutors opened a criminal case against him over a payment of 2 million Swiss francs to Michel Platini, the head of European football, and once the favourite to take over the whole organisation. Platini, remember, had voted for Qatar. Both men were banned from football, and years later Platini was detained and questioned by French police, specifically about how Qatar won that vote. So follow the wreckage. The bagman banned for life. Executive members arrested at dawn. The president gone in disgrace. His chosen heir led away for questioning. The investigator FIFA hired quitting because they buried his findings. After all of that, after the arrests, the bans, the raids, the global humiliation, surely the decision was reversed. Surely Qatar lost the World Cup it had been accused of buying. It didn't. Qatar kept the tournament. In November 2022, the World Cup kicked off in the desert. They couldn't play it in the summer heat the inspectors had warned about, so for the first time ever, the whole tournament was moved to winter, and the global football calendar was bent around one country. Gleaming stadiums rose out of the sand, and human rights groups reported that thousands of migrant workers had died building them. The men who sold the vote were mostly gone, banned, charged, disgraced. But the thing they sold was never taken back. The most damning corruption case in the history of sport ended in the simplest way possible. The trophy was lifted exactly where the money said it would be. If a country can be accused of buying the World Cup, get caught and keep it anyway, then ask yourself one question. What else has football quietly sold? Because the next story is about a club that didn't bribe for a tournament. It rigged the matches themselves from the inside week after week. And when it all came out, it brought one of the biggest names in the game to its knees. That one's even darker. Watch it next.